Okay, I'm going to try to finish this out. The one I started in the previous video. Alright, let's see. Adjust the tripod a little bit. Yeah, I was feeling tired today, so I'm getting a late start on the videos. Well, I usually make these videos a little bit later if I can, but I could have done this one earlier and I didn't because of the nap I took. Now I feel much better. Usually I try to do these finishing things when I've got plenty of rest. Yeah. That way I don't make bad choices. Yeah. Yeah, you can. The bad choices affect your Flintknapping for sure. Sometimes you skip steps and try to take shortcuts because you're tired. So what am I going to make out of it? Well, I think when I was at the Knapping, someone wanted me to make a Montel. So I think that's what I'll do with this one. Just because it's on my mind. Yeah. The Knapping's already passed, of course. But it's still on my mind, that request, so I'm gonna do it. Okay. So let's see. If I do this right, I'll switch from pressure to percussion on and off. The pressure is a lot better for creating a good striking area than any other method, I think. Especially on the tips or anywhere that's delicate. This is a high quality raw, but sometimes with high quality raw, it can get steppy. So I've got to be careful about how much force I use and get into that Goldilocks zone. And it helps to be rested. If you're not rested, or if you're not in a good frame of mind, that Goldilocks zone, it really isn't easy to feel. To get a feel for that Goldilocks zone, you need to be very mentally awake. So you got to be able to skin off nice flakes. With just enough force. The edge is too strong there. So instead of trying to force it, I'm going to try to pressure that edge a little bit to make it a better striking area. See, that's pretty stout for a nice big flake, but I don't need a big flake right there. It's already flat. I need a big flake. I need a big flake on the other side. So I could hit this, but it's above center line, so it's better if I drop it down a little bit. And when you're tired, you don't want to be careful with it. You just want to get it done. So you try to take shortcuts and you don't worry about being above or below center line or having the edge just too stout for the type of flake you want. So these striking areas are a little bit better. I'm not sure which one I'm going to take first. I'm opportunistic as well, right? So if I see an opportunity, I'll take it instead of re-chipping that edge for what I want to do. I modify my technique to the edge in most cases. I don't default to modifying the edge to my technique. I default to modifying my technique according to the opportunities the edge presents me. Why do I do it that way? I just think there's more options that way. If I modify the edge to meet my technique, if I mess up, I've got to remodify the edge again to my technique. And if I mess up again, I have to modify the edge again. All this edge modification reduces the edge and makes it more narrow without much results. If I'm messing up. So the trick is, if you're going to modify the edge to your technique, don't mess up. You have to be very, very proficient. But if you're opportunistic, if you mess up, you can just switch over to a different area that looks like it's presenting itself as an opportunity, and just take that opportunity instead. There's not much preparation involved. That's why I use it. More opportunities. And I'll just live with the results. It's a combination of more opportunities and just living with the results. If it's not quite what I wanted, oh well. I modify my attitude to the result. I modify my technique to the edge. I find that gives me more opportunities to finish out the point without messing it up. This is too stout here. I needed it stout earlier, I guess, to remove a flake, but it's too stout right now. So, just gonna, in effect, I'm gonna sharpen it. It's not gonna be like really sharp, it's just gonna be sharper without that big dull spot. That rounded tip is just glancing off. This might be able to, the spatula tool might be able to pick off that area a little bit easier. Why it does that, why it's easier sometimes, I don't know. Sometimes it's not easier, but most of the time I can just push downward and it'll do something. So I work with what I get. It's doing something instead of just glancing off. It's probably because there's a better concentration of force because the edge is so skinny on the tool. It concentrates the force. I guess if I were to use a more pointy pressure tool, instead of this rounded, very smooth tip, I could sharpen it or create facets so that there's sharp corners on the tip. It would pull off the flakes easier because it focuses the force better. But that requires more maintenance and requires me to modify the tool to my technique instead of me just working with what I've got. See, I didn't have to modify the tools at all for that pass to make it sharper so that the platforms are not as stout as before. Now I call the platform striking areas when I'm using percussion, but they're pressure areas when I'm using pressure. So right now I'm creating striking areas for percussion, but when I'm doing pressure, they're pressure areas. They're slightly different, but not all that much. Pressure and percussion I found extremely similar in the way that the striking areas or the pressure areas are developed. It all depends on how big of a flake you want. So you can either develop the edge or look for opportunities and you get, through experience, you get to know what the edge should look like for certain flakes. No, come on. Slippery stuff. There it goes. What I'm doing is thinning the thick spots so that when I do the final sharpening pass, it'll still be thin on the edge. See, if I don't thin the interior of the edge, once I do the sharpening pass, it thickens up too much. You know what I'm saying? So I'm taking short flakes into the interior. They don't have to be thinning. They don't have to go past halfway. They just have to thin down this area next to the edge. Besides, I got to make these sides much straighter too, so I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I got to remove material anyway to create areas to dry flakes, and also to look for areas where I can at the same time remove width and do a good strike to thin this area near the edge. And the flakes are getting bigger and bigger as I go down, so the edge needs to be thicker and thicker for these strikes. The bigger the flake, the more stout the striking area has to be. So it changes as you go down. Now with some techniques it doesn't change because you're running the same exact flake every time. But with this technique, see, I'm making bigger and bigger flakes as I go down. So the platforms and the striking areas have to be thicker and thicker on the way down. And I'm going to be hitting harder too. Now, what techniques lead to doing the same flake over and over? Those fancy parallel flake techniques. It's pretty much the same flake every time. But you don't see that parallel stuff on wide pieces. It's usually on narrow pieces. You do see some of it on large pieces, but they don't go all the way across. In most cases, to go all the way across on a wide piece is the pinnacle of the skill. That requires the most skill of all. It's just a lot of practice running flakes, and eventually you'll be able to run long, narrow flakes across a large distance. But yeah, that requires the most amount of practice, the most waste of material, the most time invested in the skill. You know, the more fancy the flaking, the more resources required. You're using up a lot of rock resources, you're using your time resources, you're using up food resources because you're not hunting while you're napping. So you're depending on someone else, or you're depending on yourself to store up food so that you can take the time to develop the skill. And with storing of food, you're going to have some waste. Storing food is subject to spoilage, is subject to rodents or predators getting into your food. You spend time guarding your stored food. A lot of resources required for techniques that require a lot of practice. So one thing that it should be a rule, I don't see it very often in the literature, the archaeological literature, is that the more intricate and the more delicate and the fancier something looks, the more resources are required to produce that. Not the other way around. You don't do that in the absence of resources. You do that in the presence of excessive resources. Excessively fancy means excessively resource intensive. The only exception to that is if the flint napper is exceptionally talented, naturally talented, without having to develop skill over time. It is possible that some of these nappers were naturally talented. I don't know how the brain can do it, but that would be the exception. The brain is naturally talented. Hand-eye coordination and all that. So that not many resources need to be expended to achieve that high level of accuracy. Okay. I'm going to be doing a very, very hard strike, so I don't want to use steel just in case it smashes the edge. But it eats up my tool. It's acting raw. Did it do it? Yes. Very risky strike, right? Because this area was a high spot. So it could have stepped right there. It could have stopped right there. See that? It could have stopped there. But with the added force, it popped it off. Luckily, that is luck. Okay, but it did work. Having rest and being able to focus on exactly what I needed to do helped a lot. I don't know if I could have done that if I was tired. Yeah. All right, let's see what else we can do. It eats up the aluminum for sure. I could get out the steel for that one. It's a stout flake. It has to be a stout hit. I was having success with steel earlier, so let's do the steel. All right. It's dicey though. Okay, it did it. I keep crossing my fingers because these strikes are dicey. Very, very dicey. All right, so I'm not going to push my luck on that side. I have some thinning to do maybe on this side that I can do while I straighten these sides out. So I'll do that here. Using the Abrader as both a hammerstone and an Abrader at the same time. I'm hitting and brushing the edge at the same time. When you see me do that a lot, like that, instead of like that, when I do this a lot, I'm striking and brushing at the same time, in case you didn't know. Okay, some knappers just do this. They go in a faster motion, but this is what they do. I'm hitting and brushing at the same time. Why? Because it removes more of the edge, exposes opportunities naturally. I don't know how else to explain it, but it just naturally exposes the tough spots. Those tough spots are often good striking areas for flakes. And of course, go back and brush to just the final brushing to get off those little weak areas in between the bulky areas. I don't know if I want to take any more thinning strikes. I might not. I might just do little edge thinning flakes instead of broad surface flakes. Yeah, I really don't want to thin it anymore. I'm getting a little nervous. Yeah, that was a good one. Lucky. The thing is, you can't depend upon luck. So, I don't strike with the intent of being lucky. I try to make strikes as logically as I can. You know, it's got to make sense, but if it results in a better than I expected result, that's where the luck comes in. I might just have to leave that step in there. Yeah. All right, I'll do a little bit of damage control here. So I'm kind of skipping around. I'm gonna do damage control here. That's a thick spot, so let me try to get that out. Plus there's a fingernail step fracture there. This one, I don't know what I'm gonna do about that one. You know, I could take back this edge a lot and then shoot another flake in here. A big old flake from a thick area up here down into there. But I got steps everywhere. I got a wall of steps to prevent me from doing much on this side. Except, you know, I could compound those step fractures and take my little cheater tool. And once that step is high enough, I can stick it against it and but those flakes may dive. So that's not a good strategy. That's just a possibility. It's not a good strategy because it's too dicey. Anything that's too dicey is not a good strategy. It's just a possibility. Just a possibility. I could shoot a flake from here. But that's dicey. Yeah. Way too dicey. The funny thing is, this process, this finishing process, is what requires the most skill and the most training and the most instruction. But this is the part that very few people actually watch. They watch the first part, where it's the spalling it's the spalling part where you have rock to biface. You're spalling off big flakes. That's where people want to see. But that's not the part that requires the most training, the most instruction, and the most skill. It's a weird thing. It's ironic. Yeah. I get people, when I'm doing this at Knappings, I get people drifting off into La La Land, thinking about their nice soft bed at home instead of their little tent sleeping bag. They're thinking about their nice comfy bed at home, falling asleep on me, watching me do this part. This is the most critical part of all of knapping, the finishing. There's all kinds of different ways to do the first part, and it doesn't even need to be all that skillful. You can have your buddy do the first part for you and just give it to you when he's done his thing on the preliminary knapping and the bifacing. And then finishing it out is where the skill comes in. Yeah. I bet you some knappers back in the day thought it was beneath them to do the first part. They didn't do the first part. Let someone else do it. And you hand them the biface. You hand them the doodle or the biface that's all wonky, and he'll finish it out. Yeah, it's possible it could have been done that way. And you can also do it the other way. You can have the most skillful guys go out, find the stone and biface it, and then give the bifaces to less skillful people to finish out. Yeah. It can be done either way. But I think the way it was done most often is the same napper would do everything. And maybe the second most common way is for the lesser nappers to do the first part and hand over the bifaces to be finished. And the third way is to have the experienced guys go on the expeditions, gather the stone, do the bifacing, do the quarry work, and just hand over the stone to the finishers that may or may not be as skillful and probably not as skillful. They're just putting in their dues, putting in their time behind the tools, so to speak, and then eventually they'll be the guys gathering the stone later on. That could be one scenario. Yeah. Or it's the other way around. They put in the time gathering the stone and bifacing at the quarry, and someday they'll be the finishers. But I think most common, like I said, was that the napper did the whole thing. Everything from expeditions, gathering stone, doing the quarry work, doing the bifaces, and then doing the finish out. And I think a lot of these were stashed for finish out later. The napper that does everything gathers the material and stashes the bifaces for later, so he can work on them later. Could have various stashes in various places, especially if it's a cyclical thing where you're in the same campsites year after year in a cyclical type of situation. Summertime, this campsite; wintertime, the other campsite; summertime, wintertime; summertime, wintertime. Just rotates, and then you have stashes in both areas. So you have stuff to work on in the summer and stuff to work on in the winter. Much easier to work on stuff in the summer tell you right now. Much easier. But I bet you a lot of the work was done in winter and not in the summer, because you're cooped up in the winter anyway. Might as well do something while you're cooped up. You know? I gotta stop thinning it. But I've reached the straight sides stage, so I gotta stop trying to thin this down. Yeah, I'll reach my limit soon. Okay. You want to stop before you reach your limit. Because if you reach your limit, that means you made a mistake. That's how you know you reach your limit, when you make a mistake. Like right there. It terminated too soon. That's a mistake. So I should have stopped before that. And same with down here. I took a chance on this not being like that, you know, hoping that it wouldn't step so bad. I might be able to pop that out. Hold on. We'll see. If I can't pop it out, I might just try to run a flake into there from somewhere. Let me see. My utility blade is getting... My utility knife blade is getting dull for these pop-outs. Got to sharpen. Get under them. There's guys out there who are experts at popping these out. There it goes. You see that? I'm an expert. Yep. All I gotta do is sharpen up the blade. It's not sharp anymore. I dulled it. Luckily, I have a grinding wheel, huh? Yeah. All right. No. Oh, there it goes. Some of it got popped out. Some guys are such good experts at doing this technique, I'm wondering if they do the whole knapping that way. Why are they so good at it? That's what they do to get their knappings done. They do a lot of that. Step popping, step fracture popping. Maybe. I've actually seen bifaces that are handed to me from guys that have done that the whole biface. So I know of what I speak. You know, I'm kind of teasing you guys. But yeah, I've seen guys that have worked slabs, and they let's see, where's the slab? Do I have one? Piece of glass. They work the slab on the square edge all the way down on both sides, and then they get step fractures down here, right? So what they do is they pop all those step fractures, trying to get those flakes to continuously travel. They do, but they look all kind of wavy. Some of them dive in, some of them pop out and leave scoops. And in the middle, they hand it to me, and in the middle is all like weird. How do you guys do that? It's all weirded out in the middle. They want it nice and clean. And they hand it to me. And they go, can you do something with that? I can't do nothing with it now. And I go, yeah. I'm just going to have to clean all those spots off. All that gunk you leave in the middle, I'm going to have to clean that all off. That's fine. I think that's what they wanted anyway. They wanted to show me they wanted me to show them how to clean it off. So I I take back the edge. I take about 1/8 of an inch off, grind it up pretty good, pick off thick spots, regrind it, and then start shooting big bold flakes. And they go, big bold flakes? I thought you were going to do long, narrow ones like I was doing. No, man. I don't do that. I don't play that. I don't play that game. Yeah. They don't get upset or anything. They just didn't think that that's what they should be doing. Yeah. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it a little bit wonky. Yeah. I don't want to mess it up. So I'll just, there's a compromise, you know. There's a compromise. It's not going to be as pretty as if I were to take a lot more time with it. What I should do is look for a good area to run a flake into there to get rid of that and build up a pathway into that area. The closest thing I can do, see how long this flake is here? I could take off some of this base, and then somewhere in the process of removing this lower part, maybe 1/8 of an inch or a quarter, even a 1/4 inch, there would be a way to shoot a flake in here from down below. That would be the easiest, like right here, after getting rid of that little step, make this surface here convex up to that obstacle, and then run a flake from the base into there, like a flute. Yeah. You might say, why not go this way? Well, I would, but it's got a moat. See this little depression here? If I try to attack from here, I hit the moat, and I'll step fracture it right there. I call it a moat. It's a furrow. It's a little depression there. You can't run flakes through there. They'll stop. Just like in a fortress when it has a moat. Your attack will stop right there, and you'll bang up against the other side of the moat. Because you're on water or whatever. You don't have you don't have a way to surmount the next obstacle. All right. Anyway. So let's see, 38 minutes. I don't like the quality of this edge. Yeah, I'm not going to mess with it. I just need to straighten it. I'll live with whatever it ends up looking like. And why am I using the spatula tool? Because all I need to do is downward pressure. And this spatula tool affords me the best opportunity to not crush the edge. The best opportunity to not crush the edge. Does that make sense? I don't want crushings on the edge. I hate those. I hate them. What is that? Bunch of little steps right there. I mean, not a steps. Undetached flakes. Not necessarily steps. A step fracture is an undetached flake, but not all undetached flakes are step fractures. Catch that one? All step fractures are undetached flakes, but not all undetached flakes are step fractures. See these little undetached flakes right there? Looks kind of like a little plant, leaves. Step fractures go the other way. They're parallel with the edge. These are not parallel. These are just undetached flakes in a little pattern there. Looks like a little plant. How do you get rid of that? I just have to flake them off. Like just sneak in there. Try to get them off that way without taking too much of the edge off. This is actually tough material. If I was using natural materials like horn or antler to knap this, it'd be a lot tougher to accomplish. Not impossible. Some guys love working this hard raw stone, high quality hard raw stone with the natural materials. They enjoy it. It's not something I enjoy, but I've done it. I know what it takes to do it. I've got to think many happy thoughts before I do it, because to make up for all the tool wear that I'm going to experience, it's going to wear down my tools a lot, my natural tools. And I might even crack my favorite billet. So I got to think happy thoughts before I go into that kind of thing. Yep. So to speak. You know, I got ADHD, very low dopamine, which means that most everything I do is blah. It feels like blah. You gotta do this and that, blah. Don't you like expending some effort in the challenge? Blah. Doesn't it feel good to do something that requires effort? Blah. Not for me. I get the enjoyment looking at it after. Ooh, it feels smooth. Yeah. I don't get the joy of doing it. No dopamine. And it's also like low T, right? I must have low T. And no, it's not the tea that you drink. I'm low on tea. No, low testosterone. I always have lots of tea, or I used to. I find out that I don't do well with tea. It makes my tongue all rough and stuff. I found out that I'm probably allergic to tea, the plants that tea is made out of. I got food allergies. Yep, I'm one of those. I don't do good with plants. I went full vegetarian, full no meat for a while, way back in the day. What happened to me first thing? I gained 15 pounds in the first month. And everyone goes, how is that even possible? I gained 15 pounds and I became inflamed. My hands were fat, my joints hurt, especially my wrists. I was not able to think clearly. I had lots of brain fog, which means my memory was like second rate. I could not remember anything. You give me 3 numbers, I can only remember the first one. 3 items on a list would be my maximum that I can remember. You give me a 4th item on a list, I forget the last 2 or 3. You know, I can remember the first one. You know, you give me some item. It's really strange the way the brain works. You give it too many things and it scrambles the whole thing. It doesn't just forget the last one. No, it scrambles everything. Anyway, I think that was all related to the reactions I had, allergic reactions. It causes inflammation in the brain. Now, this is not medical advice. I'm just saying that's what I think happens. As soon as I got off the plants and strictly on proteins and fats, with very little plants, just the ones I could tolerate, like I can tolerate pickles, you know, cucumbers, I can tolerate lettuce, collard greens, very low carbohydrate vegetables, although lettuce is starting to get sugary, as far as I can tell. Yeah, I got off those and immediately dropped 15 pounds. And all the inflammation shrunk up. I could actually feel my brain was lighter. You know, it wasn't burdened by this weird constant fatigue. Yeah. So I think it's allergies, food allergies. And also, as you get older, some people, not everybody, some people are less and less tolerant of carbohydrates as they get older. They develop type 2 diabetes and all that kind of stuff because it messes with their insulin and all that stuff. Too many carbohydrates. You start stressing the liver too much and it can't deal with it. So I'm no longer Mr. Donuts. No longer Mr. Donuts and sugary coffee. It's black coffee and eggs. Yep. It's okay. The trade-off was hard, but I did it. And no more sugar, mostly just salt stuff. Salted snacks, not sugar snacks. Why am I telling you this? Because a lot of people actually do benefit from that diet. With no sugars and no carbohydrates. Your body will produce the glucose that the brain needs. You don't need to introduce it with a diet. Same with cholesterol. Your body produces the cholesterol it needs and gets rid of the rest. So if you eat excess cholesterol, your body will just eliminate it. Now, if you eat too much of it too fast, it can't eliminate it that fast, and you start to overtax your system, and it starts depositing the cholesterol in places it shouldn't be. Yeah. That's a dangerous situation. But if you just moderate it, so you're not just gobbling down tons and tons of cholesterol, your body can deal with it. And if you don't have any at all, no cholesterol, and the body starts making it on its own, and it's used to making a bunch of it, and then you add a bunch of cholesterol on top of that, suddenly and periodically, it goes haywire and says, wait a second, I can't deal with these roller coasters. Yeah, you're roller coastering me. That's what your body's telling you when you do that. All right, so I tried the base flake thing. I'm going to try one more tactic here. See, during that explanation and during the talking, I was able to take some risks without thinking about it. I took some dicey risks around here to thin it down even more. If I was paying attention and being very careful like I was before and pampering it and stuff like during the first part of the video, I probably couldn't have run flakes as easily and I would have messed it up. I'm thinking I probably would have messed it up pretty bad. But I distracted myself so that I can let my experience pretty much take over. And we'll see what happens. I just need something else to talk about. Yeah, I tell people a lot of times, if the conversation gets around to this, that if you have Native American heritage, you shouldn't be eating a lot of stuff that is not ancestral. You know, you need to be eating a lot of wild meats if you can. If not, then just stick to meats. You know, you can eat lean meats too, and nothing wrong with eating lean. You do need to have some fat in the diet because it's just part of nutrition, but don't overdo it. You know, and then pay attention to how you feel. At first, when you switch over to a non-sugar diet, you're going to go through what they call a keto flu, where your body starts to switch over to burning ketones. Your brain's going to be burning ketones, and you're going to feel like you've got flu-like symptoms because it's making a transition to the new energy form. So it's not going to be as efficient as it was before in utilizing energy. It's making a transition to another form of energy. So you're going to feel like you've got flu-like symptoms, you know, fatigue and crankiness and stuff. But you got to just wait a few weeks or even months, and then it'll get better. Same with your gut bacteria. Gut bacteria is going through a change. So you'll have weird things happening. I won't elaborate, but that'll pass also. Just give it some time. If it doesn't pass, you have to go in for a checkup. Maybe your gut bacteria is all out of whack. It's worth getting it fixed and getting it back into whack. You'll feel a ton better. In many cases, not in all cases. It's not for everybody. But as soon as I got my gut right, it did make a big difference with me and my moods. Oh, yes. It's terrible going through life with the only way to motivate yourself is through anger or fear, because you just have no motivation at all. The cure for motivation, there's two cures, anger and fear. Anger and fear can motivate you under any circumstances, but you don't want to go through life that way. It's terrible. I know from experience. And your children will see it. They'll think you're just Mr. Grumpy. They won't like it, and for good reason. Oh, yes. There's a good reason why they fuss when... I mean, they have a good reason to fuss when you're always angry. You're not angry at them. Your disposition becomes such that the only way to motivate yourself is to get ticked off. And you're ticked off at this, ticked off at that. Yeah, uses up a lot of energy and gives you a lot of strength and a lot of willpower. If you're ticked off at it, you're going to conquer that thing. But it wears on you. All right. Yeah, lots of bad chemicals. It's not good. All right, so I tried to get that cleaned up. It was all right. I don't know if I'll be able to get that cleaned up. It's going to require quite a big strike into that area. I don't have the convexity. No. All right, let's see. Do I have my red book? Where is my red book? What's a red book? This is the red book. All right. Why do I need it? I'm going to look up Montel. Excuse me while I immediately switched to Montel because I didn't know it was there. See, that's a Montel. See how wide mine is? This is a wide Montel. But, yeah, I think I have another one on the other side. Remarkable how it just immediately went to that page. Or maybe I'm just used to it being right in the middle of the book. Maybe. Yeah, this is just a small sampling of Montels. They're varied, quite varied. Some have wide bases, some have little beady ones, some have little beady ones, and the big fat ones, you know. So I guess I can just do whatever I want. Yeah, I'm gonna do whatever I want. I wonder if there's clipped ear Montels. Or clipped barb. Clipped barb Montels? Is that a thing? Or are they all sharp barbed? I wish I knew. I'm from Texas, I don't even know. Well, I'm not from Texas, technically. I've only been here for 30 years. It's amazing, you know, you're somewhere for most of your life and you're not really from there if you weren't born there, technically. I was born in Florida, but I'm not from Florida. I grew up in the Northeast as a Yankee. Yeah. And that's where I'm going to live. Or that's where I do live part-time. I go visit. I go back and forth from Texas to Vermont. And I like it. I like both. And New Hampshire, too. New Hampshire, Vermont, same thing. Basically. As far as terrain goes. Now, politics, that's different. But the environment, you know, pretty much the same. People, yeah, they're kind of the same. What am I doing? I'm trying to strengthen the base to run flakes. I'm going to have to run flakes anyway for the central notch and the, you know, putting in the barbs. But if I can run a flake into this area, if I can establish some sort of convexity, I can run a flake into here and make it nice and pretty. Yeah, as long as I'm talking about something to distract myself, I should be able to do it. Because I'm not going to be thinking about it too much. I need to not overthink it. That's the trick. It's, you know, this is a high pressure situation where I'm working with a former artifact. Even though it was just a minimally worked spall. In fact, the only thing that was worked was the actual bulb of percussion, the strike that removed the spall, and that was it. No other human work on it, I guess. Well, maybe the surface flakes were removed. Yeah, but other than that, it was minimally worked. I'm not gonna work an artifact that's got a lot of human modification to it. We can learn a lot from something like that. As far as the edge quality, we can't really learn a lot from how they did it, but we can learn what they settled for as far as edge quality. This might be a finished tool, but I doubt it. I mean, it can be used for digging up roots and stuff. Who knows? We can think of all kinds of things that these things could have been used for and be wrong probably 90% of the time, because it might have just been one of those camp debris things. It's just, we might make something out of it later. I was just goofing around with it, testing it, and I found a better rock, so I just chucked it. I just tossed it. And I might make something out of it later if I get desperate. But, you know, just have it in the camp. You know, pet rocks in the camp. Yeah. Once in a while. You know, just like having little animals in the distance hang around your camp. You don't mess with them. You know, I see a few little coyotes out there or foxes. I don't mess with them unless I get hungry, and then it's fox hunting day or coyote hunting day. They start to look good, just like these little camp spalls or camp bifaces. You know, I need a stone to work on because I need another projectile point. That piece of stone is looking pretty good. I don't see an opportunity. Okay. That's a dicey one. Why is it always dicey? I don't know. Just my luck. Come on. I know you got it. Yeah, there you go. I knew you had it in you. Just gotta push a little harder. Yep. Just a little bit. Let's see if we can establish some convexity. Do we have it? Do we have some convexity? Have we achieved enough convexity? No. Not really. Dang it. I'm not worried about the size of this montel, right? I probably should be, but I'm not. Maximize the size. I'm not going to maximize the size. I'm going to maximize the smoothness of the surface. They didn't know about bacteria back then, but they might have this idea that the cleaner it is, the less difficult it is to keep it clean, you know, washing it or whatever. They knew that if something was dirty, it would make you sick if you processed food with it. I'm pretty sure they would say, you're not going to be using that dirty old thing for my food. We'll get sick. And you might ask, well, what makes you sick? Well, it's just, I don't know, it just makes you sick. So there you go. By experience. Experience tells us it makes us sick if you butcher it with that dirty knife. Yeah. And we're going to the islands. I think we're going to the islands. Yeah, we went to the islands. I bet you didn't think we were going to go to the islands with this napping session, huh? It's going to be expert. There's an expert doing this. Yep. You might say, where's the expert? In my mind, in my brain. Yeah. It's the only place they exist anyway. You might say, I thought you'd change your diet so you wouldn't be all weird-brained. Yeah, me too. Didn't work too good. Kind of did. At least I feel better in my weirdness instead of feeling terrible. Yeah. let's see what we got. What we got? What we got? Am I gonna make a fool of myself if I try to? Shucks, man. It's less than ideal. I might have better luck just pushing on it instead of striking it. It's not that bad. It looks like it'll go straight on in. I don't know, dude. Metal on metal. Yeah, let's see. Tiptoe through the tulips. Yeah. No, I don't trust it. I got a little bit off. See that? Just a little bit. Right there. It took off a little bit. But I don't trust going and hitting it really, really hard to try to get that big piece off. I'm going to try to push it off. Yeah. That I think will be better. And this has already been worked, so I don't have to do too much to it at all, or anything to it. I just sit here, focus, do the kung fu type of focus, and see if I can push that off in one strike, one fell swoop, with a lot of pressure. Did it do it? Whoa, what did it do? Hey, look at that. Am I seeing that right? I'm seeing it right. I think it did it. It just left a little bulb right there. I pushed really hard. It left a little bulb. But that's better than a step fracture. I was almost afraid to look and see what happened. Yeah. I got a crystal pocket. No wonder. Yeah. That's what that did. That's why it was hard to do. Yeah. It was the crystal pocket the whole time. Yeah. You might be saying, really? No. Not really. I'm just goofing. But it's a good excuse, right? Messed me all up. You know the saying, right? If you need an excuse, doesn't matter what it is, any old excuse will do. Just need an excuse. Who says that? Well, if you're honest about it. No, but the people who are good at excuses, they want an excuse that'll stick. It has some weight. You know, it's got to be better than zero. Greater than zero. Something you can latch onto. Even if it's just like a minuscule amount better than zero. You can latch onto it. Yep. Excuses become like life preservers for the people who like to argue that way. Because the skill for making excuses is the same skill for justifying blah, blah, blah. I can justify blah, blah, blah. Anytime, anywhere. Just put me up there on the debate stage. I'll justify anything. Yeah. Just making excuses, boy. Just making excuses, bruh. No, no, no. It's not excuses. It's a skill. It's called justification. Yeah. Justification. I can justify anything. You know what I say to those guys? Automatically not to be taken seriously. Automatically. It's worse than a red flag. At least with a flag, you're honest. No, this is sneaky stuff that you are not to be taken seriously at all. What am I doing now? I'm sharpening. Why am I sharpening now and not later? Because I'm also straightening the edge. I still don't know exactly what I'm going to do with the the barbs. I got a lot. The base is really, really wide, right? So it's a little bit wider than most Montels. So I'm probably gonna have to do some kind of clipped barb Montel. I don't know. It just looks really, really wide. Yeah, see, so I don't need to run that flake anymore. I was hoping to just power through that with a flake. It didn't work, but that step fracture was tall enough that I had options. I could have either smacked it with the spatula, the spatula smacker, whatever you want to call this, the step driver, or I could push it off with another spatula type tool. Option B. I opted for option B. You opted for an option? Yeah, I opted for an option. Alright, so let's get to putting the base notch in here and establishing the base and get this done. I got a lot more to do today. Always seem to have a ton that I could be doing. I end up doing about half that much. Yeah. It's better to get half accomplished what you think you're going to do than to try to accomplish all of it and not do any, because you mess it up trying to do too much all at once. So I put in my markers. Marker 1, marker 2, marker 3. See, that's the width of the, and probably too narrow. I should do the middle notch first, and then I can see what I need for the two buck teeth. This thing looks like it has buck teeth when you're finished with it. Do this one and see how wide it is. That way I can establish the boundaries of the other. Because if I do that first, it probably will be, these teeth will be too narrow. Yeah. So let's get rid of those markers. And just do the basal notch first. Basil. Where's the garlic? All right. Yeah. Good pop outs. One of the happinesses that Flintknapping gives you is when you have this good pop outs. One of the few times where you can actually be happy in Flintknapping is when you get a good pop out. Believe it or not. Another happiness is when you stay in frame. Yeah. I don't know what the heck. I'm losing my mind here. See, these are good pop outs. Some say, wait a second, these look like they're punched out with a punch. Yeah, they do, don't they? But they're not. So there. There's at least two different ways to make the same exact flake. Okay? At least two different ways. Significantly different ways to make the same exact flake. Yes, you can get those with percussion. You can get these with percussion too. There's ones that pop outs that break in half. But you don't have to do it with percussion. So you don't have to punch these out. You can pressure those out. You might be saying that notch is too big, dude. Yeah, I think so. I think you might be right. But you know what I say when that happens? What do I say? Oh well. I can always take it down too. Lose more off the length. Yeah, I know. But it fixes it so it doesn't look like the notch is too deep. Yeah. Let's start off really wide with these buck teeth. How's that? Still not in frame. I can't move the camera any further down. So I'm just crunching, a lot of crunching. And once in a while I get a pop out. And I just took some of that tooth off. No, too much. I gotta be careful. If I put too much pressure on this, it pops out too much, just like I did before. Like I did already. Okay, symmetry time. See, I don't know what to do about that. That's right up against my chest. Let's see if I can do it this way. See, I have more control if I get the workpiece closer in, but I wander off camera. And I put the camera right up against my chest and maybe I can get it done. It's like it's a ½ inch away. If I move forward just a little bit, it bumps the camera. Yeah, but you don't want to know any of that stuff. Okay, fine. Pop out. Yes. Nice. Crunch it in. Just crunch it in. Yeah, some people go to sleep during this phase too. Oh, you're notching? Okay, hold on. Let me get my pillow. I'm gonna do some snoozing. Just keep going. Carry on. I'm gonna do some snoozing over here while you do the notching. And then someone will come up later. Can you show me how to do the notches? Yeah. Where were you last time? Oh, my pillow was so nice. Your pillow was so nice. Oh, yeah. My pillow was cool. You need to not bring your pillow into the situation. Yeah. Pay attention. That way you don't have to ask me how to do the notching. You might be saying, well, you're not doing notching now. You're doing edge work. Skip around too much. I want you to focus. Yeah, you're not the only one. I want me to focus too. But I get distracted because I see non-symmetry, so I want to take care of it. So, okay, you're going to see notching here in a second. How do I know this happens in people's brains? I don't know. Ever since I first started napping, people would go, can you show me that? Yeah, I can show it to you. You mean for real? Yes, I'll show it. And then after a while I figured out, I can show this on video. Not only am I able to show people how I do it on video, I have a permanent record of how I'm doing it. And if I have my own style, if I have my own techniques, it shows that too. Yeah, that's my style. That's my technique. How do you do your flint napping, they might ask. Funny you might ask. I've got some videos and you can see. How many videos you got? I don't know. How many? If you look at the first number in the title, there's a number in the title all the time. If I can remember. Sometimes I don't remember. There's a number in the title, the first number there. It's not the date. It's not a code. It's a number of videos I have. I'm up to 1,500 something. Yeah, there you go. You even get to see my skill development over time. If you want to see how I did as a newbie, go back to the beginning. You might say, well, yeah, I was already pretty skilled at that time. Yeah, I was not that skilled. I already had about a year's worth of indirect percussion experience. And yeah, I'm self-taught. And yeah, I did see indirect percussion on the internet and on the YouTubes, but they weren't doing it like I'm doing it. The indirect percussion was mainly with billet size tools and not behind the knee. It was all like rocker punches, pad supported punches, vertical punches, unsupported horizontal punches. I use what they call, or what I call, a supported horizontal punch. Support, has support. It doesn't fall away when you hit it. The guys in the beginning were using punches that would fall away when you hit it. You had to put it back in position. It wasn't supported. I wanted it to be supported, so I can hit over and over again. Rapid fire without having to pick it up and put it back in position. And then some smarty pants came up with the idea of using spring-loaded rocker punches so they could do the same thing. Spring-loaded. Yep. So now we got the last knapping I went to. I saw a lot of guys using them spring-loaded rocker punches. Very slick. Very, very slick. They were making some thin pieces, boy. Oh, yeah. That's what the indirect can do. Help you make thin pieces. I call it using a supported horizontal punch. The short name for it is just indirect. Supported, you know, it's held with something. Either someone holds it or you hold it. There's no device holding it. It's a support. You support it. It's not part of a device. It's just supported on one end. It's not stuck in the ground. It's not leaning up against anything. It's supported, either being held by a hand or by the knee or held by something. Okay. Enough of the distinctions, yeah. Why are the distinctions important? Well, when you want to know how something's done, you got to be able to make distinctions between different methods. That's why I say there's more than one way to make the same exact flake. So if you want to know how something is done, the closest you can get is a 50-50 to knowing how it was done, because there's at least two different ways to make the same exact flake. At least. Sometimes there's many ways to make the same exact flake that are significantly different from the other ways. It's not that translucent, but it looks okay. So yeah, Montels were not too persnickety as far as the flaking goes. There was a lot of bold flaking and a lot of step fractures going on and stuff, so I'm not too worried about it. This is good enough. I'm going to leave the barbs kind of thick. I think on Montels, the barbs were kind of, very pointy. I think, they weren't meaty like this, with a lot of distance in here. I think maybe they were more pointy, but I don't know. I'm just going to leave it like that. The important thing on Montels, and it took me a while to get the hang of this, is that each of these ears is straight, parallel sided here, parallel sided here. Some guys lose the parallel sides, and it doesn't look right. Okay, so it's got to be parallel sided here and parallel sided there. Okay, and you can run the notch as deep as you like, within reason, I suppose. And then the bottom of this is perpendicular to the sides. Okay, so it's perfectly rectangular in many cases. All right, so you have the right kind of look to it. Okay, so that's it. Hour and 26 minutes just to finish out. Oh yeah, look what happened. I marked all my tools with a red ring around the bottom. I made some new ones. These are just in case I run out. I got these already pre-made. Anyway, I forgot to wipe off the extra ink, so now I got it all over. This is just a Sharpie. I'm going to go to a nap in Tennessee, and I want to make sure my tools don't get mixed up with other tools, because everyone is napping in the pit. So you got to make sure you mark your tools. So you guys are going to go to the Knapping in Tennessee in the pit. Make sure you identify or have an identifier for what your tools look like. Okay. Just an aside. Okay. I think I'm going to do another video tonight, and then I'm going to call it quits. Yeah. I should probably include some of these. What I'm going to do is I'll offer this in the auction along with these flakes, some of these flakes, as a companion to the point. So this will be available in the auction. Okay. So this is raw, high quality Edwards Plateau chert, it looks like. It was a ancient Spall. I just finished it out. I finished out what someone else started. Now this tip probably could be a little sharper for a Montel. I think that they would constrict these tips a little bit. Let's see. I don't know about all the time, but I've seen quite a few of them like that. Let's see. Just so you know what I'm talking about. All right, so yeah, it's just a little more pointy, right? Okay, so yeah, I just finished out what someone else started in the past, but I'm not going to modify artifacts that have a lot of human input. Like I would not knap these because these are good study pieces and that sort of thing. If you didn't see the other video when I showed this whole box, go look at the other video. I'm not going to modify these at all. These have definite human modifications that are very interesting to look at and should be preserved. Yeah. A lot of these are doodles. Some of them are tools. I don't think there's many that are just plain old spalls except for that one that I napped. And there's thinness. Let's get out the thin ones. Compare it to the one I made. That's a flake. There's another broken thin one in here somewhere. That's not too thin. Here it is. Okay. Let's look at these and compare, make a comparison. Okay. Look at the big bold flakes. See the big bold flakes on the real one? And it's not too flakery. Okay. So what I try to do is I try to imitate the big bold flake look on my points. You can see that they have the same kind of issues with the step fractures. All right. See that one right there? It's very similar to that one there. These little step fractures are common. There's something going on there. That might be a newer break rather than an older break on this side. Yeah, that looks new here. But anyway, you can look at the thinness. And make a comparison. And you can look at the edge quality. I think this was the tip here. This is not sharp, but it's thin. It is sharp right down in here a little bit. Like right here. Kind of sharp, but most of it is not. It's not sharp. This up here is not sharp, and this down here is not sharp. But in the middle it is. Okay, this looks like the point. It looks like it was broken in manufacture. It does not look like a finished piece. There isn't any minute sharpening. It just looks like straight shaping flakes. And you can see the edge is a little bit wonky. Whereas if you look at my edge, I try to keep it as straight as possible. Just for the video. On the real ones, they didn't care too much. Okay. And that one is really wonky. And it's kind of curved. But they were still going to use it. Oh yes. And if you're not making some of them with curves in them, you're not doing them like they used to. Just saying. Some of you might be going, I never make mine with curves because it looks stupid. Are you saying the old ones look stupid? No. Yes, you are. All right. Time for a thumbnail. And that's it.